Another thing that doesn't make sense was this bizarre situation that happened in last night's Warriors-Mavericks game. So I missed it live, and then I saw the hubbub on Twitter, and then I had to do some digging. This might lead to being one of only 3 successful team protests now in league history. What is a team protest, you might ask? No, it's not what you think it is. It's where the NBA steps in and finds a call so egregious that it makes the teams replay the game from the point of the egregious thing that happened. So this happened twice since 1982. The last time in 2008, Shaq was wrongly called for a 6th foul in the final 2 minutes of a game when he only had 5. The game was replayed from the point of the foul on 4 months later, after the game was originally scheduled. Weird. So what happened in this game? Well, it depends on who you talk to. The Mavericks are very certain that they were fucked over. Very certain. The Mavericks lost the game by just 2 points, which really felt like more. The end of the game was, I think, 5 or 6 points. That was the deficit. But they are currently in free fall, right? We know that. They are sitting tied for 10th. They're a half game from being out of the play-in altogether, which would be an absolute disaster considering that they went all in for Kyrie Irving, and it has not worked. But the winning margin came in part because of this very strange call. So here's what happened. 5 Warriors standing underneath their own basket. And Looney gets the inbounds pass, uncontested dunk. Where was the Mavericks defense on this play? Why were they not involved? Why were they seemingly on the other side of the court doing nothing? Well, because Dallas thought that they had the ball. Dallas didn't know why the Warriors were being given the ball, but the ref allegedly signaled that the ball belonged to Dallas before, I guess, correcting the call during a timeout that was also called by Dallas. The Mavs are adamant that no one told them that there was any change. You look at the spacing on the floor, even one of the officials, Michael Smith, was on the offensive end, which Jason Kidd says is evidence that there was mass confusion, not just among players, but even other officials. So now the Warriors get 2 free points, and that was the winning margin of a tight game. Mark Cuban, as you might imagine, owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Shark Tank enthusiast, was pissed. He took to Twitter, put his Twitter fingers to work, and said this: "For those wondering about the play with 1 minute and 54 seconds to go in the third, let me explain what happened. The ref called Mavs ball. The announcer announced it. Then there was a timeout. During the timeout, the official changed the call and never told us. Then, when they saw us line up as if it were our ball, he just gave the ball to the Warriors. Never said a word to us. They get an easy basket. Crazy that it would matter in a 2-point game. Worst officiating non-call mistake possibly in the history of the NBA. All they had to do was tell us, and they didn't." Have you ever read something and said to yourself, like, this is a tweet that would be written by Donald Trump? Like, that is one of these situations where it's like, worst officiating non-call mistake possibly in the history of the NBA. These superlatives, they just don't stop. So you have 2 refs that were on that side of the court, and we had 2 guys at half court going to inbound. The other ref obviously thought it was our ball as well. The NBA believes no mistake was made. Shocker that the refs think that they've done nothing wrong. When asked after the game about the call, officiating crew chief Sean Wright said, "Initially on the floor, the original signal was in fact Golden State ball. This can be seen on video. They are bringing receipts. There's a second signal, but that is a signal for the mandatory timeout that was due to the Mavs." So we said, yes, we pointed to the Mavs, but that was just because they fucking called the timeout. What are these guys, idiots? Were they rubes? Do they not know? So that's basically what they say. I don't understand what's going on. It feels like a mass chaos, confusion. I don't think the protest is going to be upheld. But I tell you what, I think the PA announcer is to blame because he's the one who announced it was Mavericks ball. And the officiating crew declares that was never the case. But I would say this. If you hear the announcer say, Mavericks ball. You should probably go over there and say, no, it's not. You know what I mean? Like, no, it's not. Warriors ball. If the game has to be replayed from the point of the mistake, you will wipe out all the scoring that happened after, and potentially that will alter both teams' futures and fortunes going forward into the playoffs. And you can see from how contentious this gets, where you have the owner writing a full memo on Twitter, that the Mavericks are so desperate right now because they are in free fall. One little mistake can send you from 6th place to 10th place and potentially out of the play-in tournament altogether, right? They are 7-11 right now since the Kyrie trade. Luka's banged up and Kyrie's injured too. He's missing games. The team has 0 bench. There's no chemistry between Kyrie and Luka. They're in serious danger of a full collapse, a full rebuild. Luka asking out. You know Mark Cuban knows how close they are to Luka saying, get me the hell out of here. That he is clinging to every single thing he can to keep them in some sort of contention just to get into the playoff and let Luka cook. Fortunately for the Mavs, the last few games of the season are pretty easy. They have the Hornets twice, the Pacers, the Bulls, who are, by the way, playing pretty well with Pat Beverly, Hawks and Spurs. Pretty winnable games if Luka plays. But they do have the Heat, the Sixers, and the Kings all on the schedule as well. Another thing I think that this game showed me is that this is the 3rd straight Warrior game that they've won now on the road. And I think the Warriors could be back. They could be back. Don't sell your Warriors tickets yet. This West is a disaster. Who is going to take the West? My guess is as good as yours, but I tell you one thing. The Dubs have championship pedigree in their blood, and they know that these other teams are weak links. They know that these teams haven't done it like they've done it. I went on the Light Years podcast last night after the game. By the way, Kuminga was incredible. 22 points, 2 threes, 2 steals. Just a gritty win. Probably his best game in his career. So I hop on the Warriors podcast called the Light Years podcast, and we talked about it. Here's what we said. You look at the Denver defensive efficiency and rating over the last, since the All-Star break, and I think they're 26th. They're giving up a ton of offensive rebounds. What does that mean for guys like Kevon Looney? What does that mean? So that matchup favors the Warriors. In my opinion, it does still. You look at the Grizzlies. If the Grizzlies are a 2 seed and you're a 7 seed, and you say to yourself, okay, well, we've seen this game. We know what it's like to have 3-point shooter assassins on the team against a half-court offense that has no shooters. They have Desmond Bane, and that's it, right? That's why
Dylan Brooks going to get some shots up.
He's going to get some he's going to get some shots up. So Jaw's not a 3-point shooter. Dylan Brooks is not a 3-point shooter. Jaren Jackson's very mid from 3, and it gets extremely physical. You kind of have to give the edge and the history against the Warriors there. And then the Kings, as much as, I've been a Kings backer pretty much all season, you say to yourself, okay, are we going to make this just like an up-tempo offensive game? If you trust one team in the 4th quarter to get stops, which out of those 2 teams do you trust to get stops? I trust the Warriors to get stops, especially if you can get some version of Andrew Wiggins back. So 1, 2, 3 seeds, I still say Vegas makes the Warriors a favorite. So if it's a wide open West and there's a team that's been going to finals and finals and finals, you think to yourself, well, I don't know.
And that's honestly nothing about this team inspires hope other than the fact that everyone else inspires 0 amount of hope. And I'm like, well, they really just need to get to 2/3 of who they are, and they might just run the table because they're all mediocre.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's pretty much it. Everyone stinks. The Warriors have been doing this since some of these kids were in diapers, and that's really it. This is probably Bob Myers' last year. They're most likely going to change the roster around. Do I think that they beat the Kings in a 7-game series? I don't know. But I tell you what, they made some good points on that pod about if you get one game at Golden 1, especially if you get game 1, and those Kings fans are already worried about the shoe dropping at any moment and them reverting back to Kings behavior. You can steal their soul. You can steal their soul in 48. And at that point, anything's possible. The West is so chaotic, the Mavs could drop 5 straight and drop out of the play-in tournament. So that's why Cuban is so adamant about protesting this game. And it underscores how important every game is when a single playoff loss for Dallas because of a referee error could put them out of the playoffs all together. Fun stuff in the West. What a game. What a game.